Hello, everyone, and welcome back to this episode of Just Another Year Chicago. My name is Nick Rohde. I am joined alongside White Sox analyst, baseball analyst, not dressed well today because we are out of office hours, Tony Cepeda. He is jacked. He is ready. The beard is coming back because the White Sox are the number one team in baseball right now. I know Tony's amped about it. They were just first in the AL last time we did an episode on the White Sox, but now they are officially the best team in the MLB. Everyone's put on notice. Jose Abreu is looking like an MVP again. Tony's been to a couple games because remember, he is a season ticket holder. So Tony, give me the rundown about the White Sox. I know they played the Royals again, and we weren't sure if the Royals were legit, but they split the series. So if the Royals are legit, but give me a little bit, just what are the White Sox doing to be so successful, this early on in the season?
So first of all, disclaimer, there's a little dog barking in the back. My neighbor always lets their dog out right at this time, so you're going to hear it. Second, yes, the Royals are good. They're kind of better than they've been the last couple of years, but they're kind of what they've always been. Whit Merrifield, I saw a stat that he has, I believe it's the most hits in baseball since the start of the 2018 season or 2019 season. He is sneaky. One of the best players in baseball, obviously, Mike Trout, these guys, but they're a good team. They have good young pitching. They have some vets that really do. They just bring just kind of that presence. They had the World Series team, obviously, so they kind of bring that culture to these younger guys. So they are coming up. Still the Kansas City Royals, though. I'm not worried about them. And the Sox weren't either last week. They swept them. I believe they outscored them 27-5 over that 3-game set last weekend, which is all bats were popping. Bridgeport Bombers just going nuts. The pitching looked incredible. There's a couple, the seventh inning, they'd bring in Evan Marshall or one of their relief pitchers and just kind of a sticky situation, give up a hit, give up, a walk and a hit. Yeah, they'd pick up their 2 runs for the game, and it would kind of take away from how good the starters did. But kind of going into this week, the starters actually didn't do that well. I was telling Nick before the podcast, I went to the Wednesday game against the Twins. They won 13-7. 5 of those runs were given up by Dallas Keuchel. He still got the win because at no point was it ever close. They scored 6 in the first inning, I believe. They flipped over the lineup. It was just overall the bats are popping. Best team in baseball for sure. Swept the Twins, swept the Royals, like I said, really built up a big lead. They came into that Royals series. They were 2.5 games out of first place, and now they are 2.5 games ahead of Cleveland and 6.5 ahead of the Royals. And I'll still mention the Twins. They're 13.5 over the Twins, who are in dead last. So overall, they're really hitting their groove.
What about the Tigers, Tony? You forgot all about the Detroit Tigers.
Yeah, actually the Tigers are in 4th because the Twins are just so bad, and the Sox just really beat them into the ground last week. That was just a great series. The first 2 were it was 9-3, like I said, 13-7. The third game was actually a lot closer. It was 4-1, 4-2 actually. I think it ended up being. It was 3-2 in the bottom of the 8th. Yermin Mercedes pinch hit a double, I think, off the wall, drove in that extra run. Kind of just sealed it. Liam Hendricks came in, slammed the door. Everything seems to be rolling. Yermin is still rolling. He had a little slump where he dropped down to almost 375, but now he's slowly climbing back up. He's at 390 right now. Try to break the 400 mark. Still OPS over 1,000. I believe it's 1125 right now. It's sitting at because both his slugging and OPS and OBS, I apologize, are over 500. So overall, looking good on the South side. We'll get into the second Royals series in a second because that one was a little different. That one had me a little nervous.
So I know that, we kind of hit on it right before the beginning of the podcast. Yermin is still one of probably the best players in baseball this season. But if you had to take him, and Abreu is having another MVP-like season, out of those 2, who deserves the MVP more? Because, again, I'm a Cubs fan, so I don't pay too much attention to it. But when you throw out stats that down 375, that's like Ted Williams back coming from World War II, smoking a stogie and going out on the field status. That's badass. So in regards to that, who deserves an MVP award more at this point in the season?
So this is where I'm a big fan of the breaking down the definition of MVP. Like for the NBA, whatever it is, truly is the most valuable player, not just the best player. Who it has been your mean. And yes, he is the DH, so you're not getting the fielding aspect. So that maybe he's awesome in the field, maybe he's terrible in the field. We won't know. And yes, he is batting basically 400, getting on base at like 60% of the time, which is crazy. But Jose Abreu, he has started to pick up his hitting. He has 8 home runs now, which the quietest 8 home runs in baseball. I did not know he had 8 home runs. He's on what I'm considering an 8-game hitting streak because he technically started that game against the Royals when the guy just crashed into him in the top of the first inning. So he didn't have an official at bat, but he did play the game. So I don't think they're technically counting it. I count it. He's heating up. But also on the defensive side, he made 2 incredible plays actually at the game I was at. One was just a Willie Mays style running back from first base. They had this big shift on. He's the only guy on the right side of the field, running back over his shoulder, basket catch. It was a crazy play. A run would have scored, got the 3rd out of the inning. And there was another play where he made a diving stop to his right again, where everyone shifted over, sprinted back to first base, did another one where he dives, tags the base with his glove, trying to beat the guy. Overall, he's just the leader for sure on this team. So I'd say he's definitely most valuable in the sense that he brings that culture. He makes those guys want to be better. And the last kind of argument I'll have for Jose Abreu was kind of what you see when they're without him. When he did get hurt, Yasmani Grandal moved to first and Collins came in to catch her, which I thought was a weird move, but it is what it is. They were kind of screwed at that point in that game anyway. But he came in and all of a sudden Lucas Giolito, who was pitching, he immediately there was a ground ball hit to the right side of the infield. He fielded it and he just there was a miscommunication on him and Grandal. Nobody covered first. And there was another play when Nick Madrigal was everything was off. They need Jose Abreu. And I guess my last point to prove why he is the MVP again, back to back, the still MVP is that slide into home plate where the catcher, he tricked the catcher. They beat him with the throw by a mile. He tricked the catcher into thinking he was sliding feet first. Okay, easy tag. He slides wide, lifts his arm up over the tag to the point where the catcher just dives past him. He'd made, an O in his body in a cartoon, and the thing goes right through him and slapped home plate. No doubt about it. That dude for the win too, walk off. That dude is my MVP, not just of the White Sox, of the league again.
So Jose Abreu's MVP. Your mean is probably the meanest hitter. I'm talking one of the best hitters in the AL. So I mean, he'll get some. He'll take a trophy home. He'll probably make the All-Star game this year. But still an incredible story. Would be even more incredible first year back up, or first year really up in the majors and wins MVP. Again, the Sox are just so deep. And when you have a conversation about 2 guys on your team who are MVP candidate players, what more can you complain about? But I kind of want to go back to what you were saying before is, we talked about this last time, but the Royals were good. The Royals were talking trash, last baseball podcast that we did last week. And now it's a completely different ballgame. You're saying that they're 6.5 out of first place, but they did split the last series with you guys. And it wasn't like it was, a landslide for the Sox in both those wins. It was a competitive series. So you said that kind of worried you in regards what makes the Royals a scary team for the best team in baseball when they're going up against it?
So it was a very weird series where, like I said, they won the first game. It was fine. That was on Friday. Or no, actually, I apologize because they played the Twins through Thursday. So it was the doubleheader was on Friday, and that first game, that's when Jose Abreu got hurt. So Giolito was cruising through. I think it was a guy on first base, but as soon as Abreu went out, first pitch was it just kind of lifted into right field, and even Adam Eaton, he kind of was coming in. It's it's drifting back a little, drifting back. At no point did I think it was a home run. Neither did Adam Eaton, and it just kind of dropped over the fence. And that was just because there was this slight little wind that warm wind was kind of blowing out to right. Pardon me. And I don't know what it was about. I don't know what it is about this Royals team, but later in that game, they did it 2 more times. I think Giolito gave up 3 real hits, and they were home runs because they just they just carried and carried and carried, dropped over the fence. So yes, you can blame the wind, but at the same time, I do think the Royals had these guys like Jorge Soler, who was former Cub, and they do have, like I said, Whit Merrifield. These guys that can just hit the ball, they can get under the ball, and the Sox throw really hard. That's one of their big things. Their pitchers throw hard, and especially at the White Sox, stadium, the guaranteed rate field, G spot, whatever you want to call it. If you look at the dimensions, it's just a normal wall. It's not like, Fenway where it's got this big wall. It's not even like Wrigley where there's just kind of, different wind tunnels. It's just an easy place to hit home runs. It's a very standard field. And that kind of scares me because the Royals, again, are this team that they just see ball, hit ball. They're not the biggest power team, not the biggest necessarily, I don't know, fast team, but they hit balls. And that I'm not worried about the Indians. The Indians can get the hell out of here. I'm worried about the Royals.
Well, coming from a Cubs fan, that Indian series, don't want to go back to that. But I will say this, you're getting a little choked up because you're a little worried about the Royals. I do miss a guy like Jorge Soler if we're talking about the Cubs. I think the Cubs, and this is kind of like one of my last points that I want to bring up with you, Tony, is that the White Sox are kind of like the Cubs back from like 2014, 2015, 2016, where they have so much talent, they don't know what to do with it. They can do big trade packages and go out and get big name players like they did with Lance Lynn. They can put together, they can bring in even more assets in a win now mode. And obviously they're not going to be able to pay all these guys eventually because, the Sox don't have the biggest attendance in the world. Let's just be honest. We'll get to that in a minute. But like, even when they were good, they weren't filling up the ballpark. But, people are antsy. People want to go see, baseball games. They're going to go to the South Side and watch, games. But how are you feeling in regards to a talent position for the White Sox? Like, will they be able to keep all this talent? Could you see them doing a big blockbuster deal, trading away guys like that are the now DJ LeMahieu's or the Jorge Solers or, these guys that were just good enough. And, the Sox took a couple guys from the Cubs, there's no doubt about that. But are the Sox are you worried at all in regards to maintaining this roster?
That's a great question. So as soon as you mentioned it, one name popped in my head. There's a guy sitting there right below the cusp in the minors, Gavin Sheets. He just had another multi-home run game last night. He's been heating up. He's a guy that can potentially move to the outfield. He can really play everywhere, which is kind of cool, which is good for the Sox for the next 12 weeks until Luis Robert comes back, and then 4 months when Eloy comes back. But after that, the thing with like trading these prospects, whatever, these big packages, is you need a hole in your team. And yes, we do have one in center field when Larry Garcia's out there. Yes, we have one in right field when I like Adam Eaton, but he's not like the guy you want when you can have better players. We really don't have a big hole in our team. The starting pitching has been good. Obviously, Giolito's been down. But when your ace is your worst player just to start out the year, that's really not an issue where you need to trade the farm, to fix. Our relief pitching has been good. I'd be fine with getting another reliever, but then we have a closer. And it's this weird spot where I do agree with you. I think we're close. I think we can do it with this team, but I do think there is a potential where if maybe we had a guy a little bit of an upgrade with, I don't even know what position though. That's the issue. I do think that would really bring us over the top. So I know that didn't answer your question, but hopefully it also did, where I don't know who to trade. I don't know who to trade for. I don't know what we really truly need an upgrade for because these guys are so young. We don't know who's really going to be the breakout guy. We don't really know. So yes, I am worried about having to pay these guys. There's not enough room on the roster, which is the other part where that's why we would have to trade someone, but we don't have anyone to trade them for. It is just that it's a weird but good, but also bad problem to have because we might miss out on a guy like Fernando Tatis, who we ended up trading for James Shields or whatever. No, who remembers that trade? But that's just one of those things where I really just don't know the answer.
No, I mean, like, think about it. It's kind of like what we've been saying with the Bears for a long time is that they're a quarterback away from being a team. They go out and get Justin Fields, but now the defense that would have brought us a championship 3 years ago is now on the wrong side of 30. And this is the last shot. So, like, just another year in Chicago, they're always just one piece away. The Hawks did it right. The Cubs had plenty of opportunities to do it right. And the Bulls did too. just another year. But now the Sox, who we really haven't talked about being in this sort of position, are now in this position. And finally, our last topic of conversation today is that Chicago on May 24th is expanding their capacity to 60%. So a week from today in their stadiums. And I know that they're now going to have 2 fully seated sections for proven vaccinated patrons. They haven't released exactly how they're going to do that. It's most likely you bring your COVID card because the passport was not passed in the COVID passport that's been discussed all around the country was not approved in the city of Chicago as of yet. So Tony, I know you go to a lot of Sox games. I go to a lot of Cubs games. Obviously people that follow us, I do the Sup Cubs. They reply, they make fun of my hot dog. Didn't do it this time because I was too scared. Tony does it right. You've been to Wrigley and the G spot. I can't call it guaranteed rate. It's the G spot was, the G spot this year. How does it feel in regards to the capacity getting more? Do you think that the Sox are going to be able to fill in that 60% every single time? Because, it's not Wrigleyville when you go to, guaranteed rate. You go to a game, you leave, you go home, or you go to Bridgeport, which isn't exactly as super close, and it's not Wrigleyville, So exactly do you think that they're going to be able to fill? There's no doubt Wrigley's going to be able to fill. But do you think that they're going to be able to even max out every single time like they are now? Because the Sox are technically maxed out every single game, which is great. But do you think they can keep it up?
Well, it's interesting you bring that up because I looked last week. I was going to try to go to the Royals series this weekend, and I had seen 2 weeks ago that plenty of tickets on sale, nice and cheap. And then they just got hot, crushing the Twins, just kind of really everyone popping off. And then immediately the weekend was sold out. I was like, oh man, that kind of stuff. Like nothing, not even like $1,000 ticket, totally sold out. And then I go to look, Jose Abreu gets hurt in that one game and they lose a game and whatever. Yeah. And I go to look and tickets everywhere. But then I think they won Saturday and then tickets were, oh, actually, no, they lost Saturday, but it was like right before game time. They all got scooped up again. So it is like this weird, like momentum. I think as long as they're hot, when they get hot, I think it's like, oh, hottest ticket in town, hottest show in town, But if they hit a little bit of a skid, I think it's going to be, like you said, it's kind of a pain to get down there. It's not Wrigleyville, as we put it so elegantly. I do think the 60% will be interesting because, like you said, they're filling out, 10,000, 8,000 people. I don't know if they're going to fill out 24,000. Obviously, we know Wrigley will, but hopefully we'll get a chance at least for some cheaper tickets, which could be interesting. We can sit in some better spots. So that's really my take on that.
I mean, I know that a cheap ticket at Wrigley is considered $25 and a cheap ticket at the G spot is what, $3-4? Seven now, because we're the best team in baseball. But yeah, I bet, Tony, you're very happy to be a season ticket holder right now because the investment is definitely starting to pay itself off, especially when you can sell those tickets when they're hot. But that's Sox talk for today. So that's all we have for this Monday's episode of Just Another Year Chicago. Tony, appreciate you coming on as always. But with that, my name is Nick Rohde, joined alongside Tony Sapita for White Sox Talk, and we will see you guys next time.